Hello, fellow fantasy sports junkies. Welcome to MFSN's The Hub. I am your host, Dr. Dan Ratner. I am here with Casey Scheinvold, Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and as always, Ross the Boss.
Hi, I'm Ross the Boss. I want to talk fantasy sports with you, cowboy. We have a great show today. Comedian Steve Byrne is here. Great movie out. We'll talk about it. You guys should all see it. We also have Rich Davis coming back, thinking he beat Ross the Boss, which is a joke. There's no way Rich Davis can beat Ross the Boss. No one in the world can beat Ross the Boss. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest. I'm doing Ali for you. But we have a great show today. I'm very excited.
Very excited. So we're going to start our show off in the traditional MFSN The Hub way. It's 1st and 10.
First down.
Okay, guys. For 1st and 10 today, we're going to talk about semantics. What do I mean by that? That was a nice pun there. I mean the meaning of words. So listen, here's my problem with the way people talk about certain fantasy sports terms. They throw it around like we all mean the same thing. We do not all mean the same thing a lot of the time. I'll give you an example. And this is the one we're going to start out with. Andrew and I were having a conversation the other day about my favorite wide receiver, Deebo Samuel, and whether he is actually a wide receiver 3 or not. So when people say wide receiver 3, what I've come to see is a lot of times people do not mean the same thing. We're throwing around these terms, but in the end, we're talking about different things. Should I explain more what I mean, or do you guys know what I mean by that?
What is a wide receiver 3 for you, Dan? I'm curious now.
This is such a good semantic conversation. So a wide receiver 3 for me actually means the third wide receiver I would play on my team. I understand some people consider it to be somebody who's ranked 25th through, 36 in a 12-team league because it's, the first 12 receivers are wide receiver 1s, the second tier is wide receiver 2s, but that's not the way I'm thinking about it. I mean, sometimes when I'm talking to people, I know that's what they mean, but for me, a true wide receiver 3 is somebody who would be the third wide receiver I would happily plug in. And honestly, I'd rather have a wide receiver 2 at that position.
Well, but I mean, I would love to start 3 wide receiver 1s, but to me, the terms are about trying to have some sort of valuation that everyone can understand. So
yeah, but you can't. But that's the thing. If people are saying, if the people mean different things, we can't even have these conversations. That's kind of the key point of the strategy of it all. You better figure out what the other person means.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I guess wide receiver 3 is sort of a catch-all term at times for people. It's like a wide receiver that they're not quite in love with, but they feel like they could put into their lineup. But as a literal matter, it is that wide receiver 25 to 36 type of a player. But I think it's, people use the term so much that they probably end up talking about a lot more than 12 wide receivers
exactly
with that term. I think the kind of player that's a wide receiver 3 is, it's a lot of the time it's these like more possession receiver guys that don't have that upside of being a wide receiver 1 and are not a wide receiver 2 that's putting up huge points every week, but they have a solid floor. They, will catch 5 or 6 passes every week. Those kind of players tend to be wide receiver 3s. And then, sometimes there's the more boomer bust guys too, the guys who could win you a week every once in a while, but you're not going to be able to fully trust them. What I said to you was that I thought Deebo Samuel was a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 potential, because to me, if he has a few more good games, I would feel like he's becomes sort of that must play every week kind of a guy, but he also could prove to be not reliable and drop out of wide receiver 3 consideration. So like as of now, I feel like he's a decent guy to plug into your lineup, but not a certainty.
But you bring up another key point, and I want to ask Casey and Ross about this because they look like they're mutes. I don't know what's happening. We'll get to them in a second, but I guess Andrew and I just went off on like a
you didn't give us a whole lot of room there.
Yeah, there was no wiggle room.
True.
You guys are just hogging the conversation.
You guys are like our co-host 3s, and
that's how I feel like. I do feel like co-host 3.
No, but see, here's the thing. I mean, if Deebo Samuel is a wide receiver 3 who could slip into being a wide receiver 5, then he isn't a wide receiver 3. That to me, he is at least currently a wide receiver 4 at best. A wide receiver 3 should be proven like he's going to stay in that range. If you want to say he is 25 through 36, he's somebody who should be there consistently.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree either. I think
I don't either.
My whole thing is this. Like, I'll give an example. I have Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill on my team. Okay, so they're 1 and 2 receivers, and I also have another receiver spot. That receiver spot I call is like just whoever's the best matchup, and that's the receiver 3. That's more of a rotation type deal that just goes with who's the matchup is. If they're playing Atlanta, if they're playing Seattle, who has a horrible pass defense, it doesn't matter. But
right.
But I feel like you always start the 1 and 2 receivers unless they're hurt, of course. And then same with running backs. Running back 1, you always start, and then running back 2, you can kind of have flexibility with that. But that's how I call it when I talk to people about. That's a wide receiver 3. That's my terminology.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
But listen,
let's talk about. Let's see what Casey says. Casey could be totally.
No, not yet. Not yet. We'll get to Casey soon.
I'm enjoying my muteness.
Oh God.
No, I just want to say one thing because Ross, I totally respect your opinion on that, and I don't even think it's wrong. That's my point. You have a different definition of wide receiver 3 than I do, and I need to know that when I'm talking to you about it. So, Casey, what is your definition of wide receiver 3?
Well, I look at it even a little differently, or maybe it's kind of similar. I look at
this is the whole point.
Rankings. Wide receiver 1, 2, or 3 are most relevant. I think during more of the draft process where you're trying to predict where players are going to be. Once it's season 10, I look at wide receiver 3 as the third best receiver on my roster.
You mean week 10? Roster. Week 10. Season 10 is a different.
Yeah, I'm sorry, week
it's like
10.
Season 60 or something.
And then if there's somebody on the waiver wire who's producing better, I try to get them and make them my wide receiver 3. Certainly, I think you hope when you develop your roster or build your roster, your wide receivers 1 and 2 are kind of plug and play week in and week out type of receivers. Whereas wide receiver 3 is more of that, as Ross said, matchup type of player or boomer bust kind of lottery ticket player, maybe a rookie who's playing well or a speedster who has a good matchup who can maybe hit the home run for you. Maybe it's the simple way to look at it, but wide receiver 3 is typically the third best or what I believe will be the third best wide receiver on my roster going into that week if there's not somebody better on the waiver wire.
But see, again, to me, if you're going to define it based on your own team, then it loses all meaning because then it's only relevant to you. And to me, the point is what do these terms mean in terms of assessing a value to players? Because it's basically, for lack of a better term, we use wide receiver 3 as a term, and I feel like it actually is fairly consistent across fantasy analysis, at least in terms of what people who write articles about fantasy mean when they say a player is a wide receiver 3. I understand what they mean when they say that. So I actually kind of dispute the premise a little bit there. And once you get talking about a wide receiver 4 or a wide receiver 5, I think people's eyes glaze over because if you play in a normal league, you're never going to start a player like that. That's only for a really deep league where you would even need to talk about those players. So to me, wide receiver 3 is a player who has entered into the conversation of being a potential fantasy starter for you, and that's why you're interested in it.
Okay, but I'm not saying you're wrong necessarily. What I'm saying is to be a good fantasy player, you need to know whether your meaning syncs up with what other people are actually meaning. So maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe I'm the one who's actually missing the boat here, and that's totally fine. But the meanings actually do matter to severely nerd out on.
Yeah, but it just matters. It just matters what you think. What's it matter what somebody else's philosophy is, or somebody else has some terminology that it doesn't make sense. It's what you believe in. I'm a trained therapist. I know this stuff, Dan. Don't question me. Don't question me.
Yeah,
it's
true.
All that matters is it's about you. It's about what you believe.
When I think of wide receivers, I think of 1s and 2s as ones you play every week. 3s are the ones who, to me, are either on the cusp of becoming a plug-and-play player week to week, or they're a matchup one in a hope that because of the matchup and because of the skill set, they can gain.
I see. Okay,
but that's the world according to Casey Scheinhold. That's what I love. Thank you.
But the world,
That,
but
again,
the world
but
according
again,
to
though,
me,
Ross-
terminology. That's not true. You write these articles and you think that's the law. It's not the law.
No. Listen,
you're
I agree with
quoting
you.
people in
Listen.
articles.
I
I
agree
don't
with
care
you
what
that people
people
have
write.
to manage their own team, but we're in the business of giving people fantasy advice. You're aware of this, right? So,
I'm
like,
totally
we need to be
aware of
able
it,
to
but
use
don't you need
terms
to know? Don't you need to know how they're reading it?
Well,
That's
yeah,
the thing.
but what I'm telling you guys
course.
is that I do think that there is a terminology that is pretty well used across the fantasy industry to describe these players, and it may not be perfect. Maybe somebody needs to write like the dictionary of these terms or something like that, the Encyclopedia Fantasy, Fantastica, or whatever. But
I mean, it's interesting, but like a term like must own, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot. You could say that it's a very defined term also.
well,
I don't
that's
think
not.
it is.
No, I mean
There's
it is in the sense that someone's telling you have to pick a player up, but that's just their opinion. I mean, that's like there isn't that doesn't give you nearly
and that
as
has
much.
no context.
Well, but I'm saying it doesn't.
That has
it
no
doesn't
context
give
for the
you-
league.
Right. It doesn't. Well, must own doesn't give you nearly as much information about like the kind of player they're talking about as wide receiver 3. Like to me, a wide receiver 1 is like a guy who can put up what Tyreek Hill did last week or
Keenan
something.
Allen,
That's in the
Tyreek
range
Hill,
of possibilities
Devontae
of what
Adams.
they can
They're
do.
the top wide
Adams, Ross the
receivers.
boss. That's
Yeah,
still
and
the one.
then like a wide receiver
Ross
2,
Boss is one of them.
like a wide receiver 2 is like Cooper Kupp or something like that. Like he's a very good player, but he's never going to be that wide receiver. Like you would never mistake him for a wide
to
receiver.
me, he's a
1.
wide receiver 3.
Of course.
Well,
I mean,
this year
there's
he's
levels
not
here.
having the greatest year, but you understand
He's
the
an
type
upside
of player
wide
I'm talking about. A
receiver 3.
DJ Moore, the kind of guys who are very good, and you can put them in your lineup every week, but they're not DK Metcalf. They're not that huge difference maker like that. And then wide receiver 3s can, there was a time where DK Metcalf was a wide receiver 3 because people didn't know if he was going to be reliable or not, and now we know that. So there's a little more uncertainty in that tier of receiver. It's sort of like the entryway into fantasy relevance.
I think
what we need to do. Go ahead, Casey.
I was going to say, I agree with your premise, Andrew. I don't think anybody's necessarily disagreeing, but it's just a semantic argument. So we're all saying it a little differently. When I think of wide receiver 3s, I think of kind of like the Julian Edelman of a few years ago, where you could count on a boatload of catches.
See, that to me is a wide receiver 3, but Nelson Aguilar is not a wide receiver 3, even though he might be the third best wide receiver on your team in a given week. That's
Sure.
part of my point.
So how would you describe Nelson Aguilar then? What is he?
He's a wide receiver 4 that I would call him a wide receiver 4 that I'd be comfortable playing sometimes.
Well, I don't want to ever play a wide receiver 4 unless I have. But it's
just semantics. If you call Nelson Aguilar a wide receiver 3, what does it matter?
Well,
Because you know what? You have to leave a spot open for somebody if he has a great matchup. The wide receiver 3 is a great spot to leave open just in case if Nelson's playing a horrible team like the Atlanta Falcons, and you saw what the Raiders did against the Atlanta Falcons. They played wait, that's the wrong team. But what I'm saying is this. It was a horrible fantasy.
It was against the Chiefs.
It was
they do it
against
better
the
competition.
Chiefs. I'm joking with you guys, but the wide receiver 3 is a great spot to leave open if you can have like a certain matchup that you feel strong about. You put your player in there. That's why you're a manager of your fantasy team. You make those decisions, Casey, Andrew, and Dan. You make those decisions, you'll be a winner. If not, you'll be a loser. It's up to you.
Yeah, and there is a difference between a wide receiver 3 and an every week wide receiver.
Well, of course,
right?
I said Keenan Allen. I told you I have Keenan Allen.
You're saying it's so clear, but that shows you it's not so clear.
Well, I'm just saying, sometimes players are wide receiver 3s for the week, and and then maybe
that may be, but I think the
there's
fantasy community
volatility
needs
at
to be
that
more
level.
precise with their words because
never going to happen.
semantics.
Never going to happen. Unless they watch
Hey,
our show. Unless they watch our
happen.
show. If they watch our show and listen to us.
If I'm
they
writing,
might.
it's going to happen.
Once we make our
if they're
fantasy
watching our show, they're getting more out
encyclopedia.
of it.
I have no idea what you
All
guys
right,
mean.
guys. Nice. Okay, guys. I love that debate, and whether you did or not, it doesn't matter
It's just
because
semantics.
Ross has taught that it's just semantics, and Ross has taught that I should believe in myself, and now I do.
Just over their
So,
head.
guys, up next it is Take Your Pick. We've got Rich Davis joining us. I hope he doesn't get the massive beatdown that he got last week. I'm really rooting for him to come back from that. Let's see how he does.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and we have a very, very funny comedian on today. One of my favorites. I've known him for years. He will be live. You can see him live, which is crazy this time, what's going on. We could see him live at the Addison Improv in Dallas, Texas, December 10th through the 12th. He also has a movie that he didn't produce, but he wrote and he also directed. He's a director, this guy. Who thought? It's called Opening Act. It's great. It was just nominated for Best Movie of 2020 by Google Play, which is unbelievable. If you want to watch it, go on YouTube. You can go on Apple, Amazon. You can go to a bunch of places you can watch it at. It's great. You should watch it. It's fantastic. If you like comedy, that's the movie for you. Let's welcome Steve Byrne. Steve?
Oh, good to be here. Thank you, Ross the Boss,
Yay.
Dr. Dan. Thank you, guys. Dr. Dan, I know you're from Cleveland. We got to throw in that a little Pittsburgh,
Oh
Pennsylvania.
yeah, we're gonna talk. I got to tell you about the first time I went to
rivalry.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It'll crack you up.
Okay,
crack you
well,
up.
I'm in. But thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
Hey,
And always good to see you, Ross.
congratulations
It's
on the
been too long.
movie. Congratulations. I want to talk about the movie first, and we'll talk about sports. Your movie, this is the first time you directed, and I know your buddy Vince Vaughn produced it with Peter Billingsley. I know you guys have a tight little thing you guys have together. You guys do a lot of sporting events together. We'll talk about that too, which I'm jealous about. Ross the Boss gets jealous about that stuff. Yeah. But really quickly, tell us about your movie. Tell us the whole process. I'm interested. I know you wrote it.
Yeah, well, look, Ross, I mean, you know stand-up comedy. I mean, you worked at the Tonight Show for years, and that's how we got to know each other. And, when my show Sullivan & Son got canceled, I was back on the road. I just thought, the only way I seem to work is if I write my own projects. So I thought, what's the one thing I've always wanted to see? And I've always wanted to see just a great film about stand-up comedy. And a lot of the films you see is about somebody older, kind of established, getting back into it. And I just thought, I don't want to watch a film about a 50-year-old driving home from Vegas. I want to watch a movie about a 20-year-old driving to Las Vegas for the very first time. So I thought, let's go back to those early years. Everybody had that last job, and let's explore that. And so everybody's been to a comedy club. Not everybody's been on the road. And that's what this film's about. It's about a kid's very first time ever at a professional comedy club, going there Thursday through Sunday. You're going to get to know the light, bachelorette parties, heckling, pleasing the manager, doing morning radio for the very first time. So it's all those experiences all bottled into one weekend, 90 minutes. And it really shows people what it's truly like to be a stand-up comic on the road starting off, because all those events I told you about, not everybody's good at those things. And fortunately for us, our hero, Jimmy O Yang in the film, fails every step of the way. And everything that happened in the film, once he hits the road, has happened to me in real life. So you're going to say there's no way
this is
that
all
happened.
stuff.
It did
This
happen.
is based on you. A lot of it's based on Steve Byrne. Jimmy's great. I loved him on Silicon Valley. I've seen his stand up many times at the Comedy Magic Club down south. I mean, he's a funny guy. He's done specials. He's a real stand up. It's not like he's acting. He's a guy that does stand up for once, that's acting as a stand up, which is odd now.
Yeah, and it was a tough needle to thread because, I'm Korean and Irish, and it was like semi-autobiographical. So let's cast somebody that maybe looks like me, not for diversity's sake, just for the sake of, being Asian. And there's very few Asian comedian actors that are working that are somewhat resonant and relevant. And it was a tough needle to thread, but Jimmy was the first guy we went to, and he said yes. And we're so much a better film for it.
Jimmy was great. Cedric the Entertainer was great. Even Whitney Cummings was terrific. Your cast, Bill Burr was in it. I mean, you had like an all-star cast when it comes
I'll
to.
rattle it off because I've done so much press. It's Jimmy O Yang as the MC.
Okay,
Alex
he was
Lopez
great.
as the feature. Cedric the Entertainer as the headliner. And you got Whitney Cummings, Eliza Schlesinger, Kathy Madigan, Angela Johnson, Bill Burr, Tom Segura, Neil Brennan, Russell Peters, Roy Wood Jr.
I'm impressed.
Felipe
That's
Esparza.
Wow.
So many more. Yeah, there's
I'm
Ken Jeong. There's just a ton of great
Steve, you're really good at like running off a long list of things. I've watched some of your sets, and you can say things very quickly. It's amazing.
Well, usually I have to say it quickly because that's the only way I can memorize it. If I slowly memorize
that makes
I'll
sense.
forget
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right.
Now, Vince Vaughn's your producer. Was he hands-on? Did he come to the set? Did he take notes? Did he give you any direction? How was he to work with?
He was great. He was great. He was very integral in the story. I wrote the story. I gave him a rough draft of the script. He said, "This is great. Let's work on this." And for 6 months, we worked on it. I'd go on the road and work on the script. I'd come back. I'd go to their offices on Monday, Tuesday, get notes, go back on the road. We did that for like 6 months. And I would say when we were filming, he was pretty hands off. When we were in the edit bay, he'd come in and offer his notes, but it really was my journey to take. And he was there as a great friend to offer his advice and expertise. And he's got such an education in Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, and Tent Poles and Foundation. And paramount to everything, as you guys know, his story. And he's so good with stories. So I was very blessed to work with him. And
no, it was great. And
this is a guy that's been working for 20 years. It's like, you're going to listen to Vince Vaughn when he gives you.
You listen to Vince Vaughn, and I'm not going to change the subject so quick. I've worked with Vince before on The Tonight Show, as you mentioned. Yep. I know you guys go on these sports weekends where you go on a jet, you go to like the Notre Dame game, and then you go to a Blackhawks game. Just give us a brief taste of how that works. I'm so jealous of this, just so you know.
You brought up the greatest sports weekend I've ever had in my life. I still have the ticket stubs. I think I posted it recently. But we went to a Notre Dame game. We went to a Blackhawks game. We went to a Bears game. We went to a Cubs game. And we went to a White Sox game. All within 3 or 4 days. It was crazy. And there was like 8 guys. And we just got on a plane and went over. And we just had... It was a complete blur. It was a lot of beer
and when was this?
And cheering.
When was this,
Steve?
Steve?
This must have been, it's got to be like 6 or 7 years ago. And that was,
man.
I was like, we'll never top that. That was one of the best times.
So that's one of the best weekends. I was so jealous for weeks. I was jealous of that story. And I mean, I mean, that's like a dream weekend for me, just so you know, which is great.
But Steve, also, you have young kids, and your kids were even younger then. So to have that weekend while you have young kids... That's like nirvana.
It was like I pulled the pin on a grenade and chucked it in the house. I said, "Good luck, honey," and I left. And she's been very patient. But that was the best thing we did sports wise. When he was filming The Dilemma, Ron Howard was directing, and Vince and Kevin James did a comedy show in Chicago, and I did some stand up. And the next day I went to visit Ron Howard and all these. They said, "Come by the set." So I went down. I did a little improv in a scene. It got cut, so obviously it wasn't good. But what ended up happening was one of the cameras broke down, and they said, "We're going to be a few minutes." And they had probably 1,500 people in the United Center sitting there at center ice for the background of Vince as he jumps on the ice and runs and helps Kevin James out or celebrates. And they're all sitting there. So Vince goes, "Steve, why don't you do some stand-up?" Like, oh, God. And as, when Vince Vaughn asks you to do stand-up, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do stand-up. But in the head, as a comedian, you're going, this is going to be fucking awful. This is a dog shit pile. I'm going to eat a plate of dicks. They got me a microphone. I went to center ice, and I'm literally doing stand-up comedy. I remember doing a doggy-style joke on all fours at center ice on the red line, banging my head on the ice. And I remember looking up and I saw Ron Howard and he was fixing the camera, like with the camera guy. He turned around and looked and he just goes, "Oh, Jesus." And he just went back to it. I was like, "Oh,
fuck." I mean, the first rule of comedy, you kind of have to know your audience. I mean, I love you being edgy, but I mean, in front of Ron Howard, I would have done more of the G-rated stuff. I think that's a good idea. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I imagine it would be hard to be a comedian like on an ice rink. Talk about a cold room.
There you go. Sometimes the jokes write themselves.
So talking about comedy,
lying
Steve,
there for me.
As you know, it's been horrible for comedians the past 9-10 months. I mean, I feel bad for everyone. We had Billy Gardell on the show recently. We had Kevin Nealon. We had Howie Mandel. I mean, we had all these comics on, and they were all
depressed,
crazy. I mean,
they needed my help.
They're all upset. So I know you're performing. Are there any new jokes that you're working on? Anything we can talk about that?
Oh God,
that makes sense for the whole pandemic?
I mean, there's so much to talk about, and the jokes have been so fun to do because the sad thing is that once this ends, you're going to have a ton of great material that you can never do again, right? Because people are going to be like, I don't want to hear about that shit. Point. But I'll never forget when this all went down, maybe 3 months in, when clubs started to open again. I went to Miami, to the Miami Improv. Now, you got to remember, this is George Floyd had just happened maybe 2 weeks before I went to Miami. Now, this is my first time on stage since the pandemic broke. I get on stage, I do crowd work. I'm talking to a couple in front. They're a black couple. They're pleasant. They're fun. And we're just talking about the news just to break the ice. Literally, I go to the other side of the stage. I talk to a guy. He's shredded. He's a white guy, medium T-shirt. And I'm kind of making fun of him for being in such good shape. And I go, so what do you do for a living? He goes, I'm a police officer. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So this is just... I mean, when the country's consumed with all this shit, right? And in the back of my head, I'm going, all right, I got to get these two to have a shot together. And for the next 3 minutes, I just start ping-ponging back and forth. Because as soon as I said I'm a cop, I go to the black couple, I go, I got this, guys. And you're getting goodwill. And then eventually they did a shot together. We did a shot. The whole crowd, you could just tell, was just like, this is great. Because the air got sucked out of the room the minute he said that. And it was one of those things where, had I not been a comic for 20 years, I don't think I would have been able to pull it off. But it was the experience to be able to go in and know, cut the blue wire now the red wire, now the green wire. And it just took a little finessing, and it was a lot of fun.
You know what? Steve, I think that comics and a good psychologist have a lot in common. We know how to handle a room. But, and there's many different situations. Like I know how to handle almost any room. But the funny thing is, as a therapist, I'm also a very comedic person, but I don't get the opportunity in those situations.
Right.
People are just talking, and I'm like, "Oh, that's funny," and then I'm like, "That must have been hard for you."
Yeah, but Dan, if there's an opening, like if it says something funny, you'll go for it.
Oh
correct?
yeah, no. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
just making sure we haven't lost you. Thank God. Okay, good.
No. It's part of the reason my
gotta go
patients
for the
like
joke.
me. But I really do think, I look at comics, and one thing that's so impressive to me is you guys go up on stage, and you can handle anything. It's like you're at least that's how it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, and the funny thing is, a week after that happened, I had posted it on Instagram, and there was a video of it. And Billy Gardell watched it, called me, and he walked me through the set beat for beat. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when you're watching play by play, he's going, "Here's where you realize, oh shit. Here's where you realize, okay, I'm going to get them to do a shot." And then he started doing play-by-play, and I was like, wow, that's fucking great. And he's like, only a veteran could have pulled that off. And I was like, man, when Gardell told me that, that's when it all kind of sunk in for me. So he's literally one of the best.
Okay, so talking about Billy Gardell.
Billy G in the movie, the opening act, is named after Billy Gardell.
The little information we did not know. Little stuff.
Another Pittsburgh guy.
Little Pittsburgh. So we had Billy on the show. Pittsburgh was undefeated, of course, when he was on the show. They were 6-0.
They still are.
They're 10-0 now. I mean, I know you're from Pittsburgh, Steve. So how many wins in a row will they get this year? Will they lose a game until the playoffs, or will they go undefeated?
I'm not saying anything, because
anybody
who's played baseball
smart.
knows you don't talk when you're pitching a no. So you just don't talk to the pitcher. You keep your hands off. You don't call your shot. You just let it ride out. And I'm hoping for the best.
That's smart, Steve.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about Pittsburgh, because, I'm from Cleveland. You're from Pittsburgh.
I went to Kent State.
He went to Kent State.
And he went to Kent State. That's right. So, when I thought of Pittsburgh when I was a kid, it's so messed up. I was like, oh, that's like an old steel town. We're Cleveland. We're better than that. And then I went to visit Pittsburgh, and I was like, what the hell? This place is beautiful. What happened? Misrepresentations.
I think Pittsburgh was always known as that. I mean, you and I were probably around the same age, at least. Might be a little older than you.
You're 3 months older than I am. You're an older man.
Oh wow,
than
okay.
Me. But yeah, I was 74 also.
So I'm at the at-risk category with COVID, but you're not. I think
right. That 3 months makes all the difference.
That's right. No, Pittsburgh grew up with that smoggy, kind of foggy effect, but all of a sudden it just turned a corner, and we're like home to many Fortune 500 companies now. But there's a lot of similarities between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, both blue-collar workers, Midwestern values, and a deep appreciation for our sports teams. And you have Panani's, and we have Permani Brothers. So you still have the sandwich with the French fries.
The French fries and the I've tried it before. It's okay.
You watch your mouth, Ross.
I'm a Skyline chili guy. I'm from Cincinnati, so I like Skyline chili guys. So there you go. We're all in the same division. Pittsburgh, anyway. Cleveland, Cincinnati. That all being said, so the Steelers, you're not saying anything about the Steelers. Let's talk to Pittsburgh Penguins. I know you're a big hockey guy. Hockey starts again in January. They should be playing now. How big of a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins are you? Tell me how sacred hockey is in your house.
Immense. As much as Gardell is Steelers, I'm Penguins. I am all in on the Pens. Unfortunately, I think for my beloved Penguins, the window to a championship is closed. I just don't see it really happening again. Miracles can happen, but I think the guys are getting a little older, so I just don't. I don't see it happening.
So Crosby, Malkin, even like your goaltender Murray and Jerry. I feel your team. I feel your team has some good youth coming up. I don't agree with you 100% with the Penguins.
Yep.
I think they can make a run, especially this year with the COVID year. I'm picking them to win the East. Not the Stanley Cup, just the East.
Why do
I
they
still
have,
like Las
do they have
Vegas.
an advantage in the COVID year?
I just have a feeling that they're going to do well with the shorter schedule. They have older players.
Ross
like
is
Steve
really
said.
good with these feelings.
Yeah, so I like the Penguins this year. We'll see if I'm right. You know, I'm good with predictions, as everybody knows. I'm Ross the boss. We all know
Wait,
this.
how old is Sidney Crosby now?
So Crosby, I believe, is 32. Malkin's 33. Letang is 32. And look, we've given away all of our draft picks.
All of them.
Always win now, all of them. So we do have a few young legs that we got. We'll see how they pan out. We don't know how they're going to adjust because the biggest thing is, can he play with Sidney Crosby? Can he play with Evgeny Malkin? And sometimes they just don't gel. I mean, Phil Kessel, you would think, would gel with Sidney Crosby. He didn't. He had to go to Malkin's line. And then even with Malkin, it's like, well, let's make a potent third line. So he went to the third line with Bonino and Carl Hagelin and blew it out of the water. So we have 3 number 1 lines on the Penguins the last time we won the Stanley Cup.
You did, and Malkin did get hurt last year, and you'd have some. Crosby gets hurt all the time. I mean, people are kind of targeting him on your team, as you know, and It happens every year. He's out for a little bit, and he comes back. I mean, he's a beaten up guy.
Yeah, my pick is for the Vegas Golden Knights. I think they're going to.
That's who I have. I like the Golden Knights.
Do?
I think the youngest. They're young. They're hungry, and I just love their enthusiasm. I think they'll do well this year again. They made the playoffs every year they've been around. I mean, it's kind of incredible.
Right. Wait,
and of course, the Kings
how
and
did they
Ducks
get
don't.
so good so fast? I mean, like for a Cleveland Browns fan, it's a little bit baffling.
I think it was George McPhee who came over from the Washington Capitals. Came over. He was their GM. He had a great outlay of who to get and who to cherry pick off the teams. And look, they got lucky too with Fleury from the Penguins. They just won the Stanley Cup. We stuck with the young hot goaltender, and we got rid of our veteran Marc-Andre Fleury, and Fleury went over to the Vegas Golden Knights. And goaltending in the NHL is everything once you get to the playoffs. In their first season, he took them in the finals, and
Fleury was hot.
He was great core around him.
He was the hottest goalie in the playoffs that year, a couple years ago. I totally remember, and he had a huge run. I mean, he was like nothing can get by him. He had like shutouts, and he was incredible. I agree with you on that pick, and we're going to do a hockey special on our show, and I wanted to have you on that because I think you can compete with me.
Always down.
Steve, thanks for coming on. Great. Good luck to you. I hope to see you soon. Everybody go watch his film. Pay the $6, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's totally worth it. The Oscars are coming out, I think in January or February.
Oh yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Yep.
What do you think?
For the opening act? Fuck no.
Oh, come on. Have some hope.
Okay, everyone, it is time for Take Your Pick. We have Rich Davis back with us. Rich, thank you for coming on again. We had to do a follow-up because you made picks. We have to follow through here.
No doubt,
So
no doubt. Let's do it.
Let's start with talking about, it was Ross versus Rich. And then we'll get into the fantasy players. So, Ross, Rich, how do you recall you did? I have the results if you're not remembering. I'm happy to report them, but unless you may remember them.
Why don't you tell us the games and give us an overview.
So
it's hard for me to talk about myself.
I mean, well, yes, I know. We've noticed that, Ross. So, okay. First of all, you picked the same in 2 of the games, but you guys both did pick Kansas City to cover the spread, which at the time was 3, then shifted to 3.5. So we're going to call that a push. You guys pushed on that one. But you had Chicago against Green Bay in Chicago. Rich, I know you have some regrets about that. I imagine
I
you
do, because Aaron Rodgers had burned me a few times this year. So I said, I'm not going to let him do it again. And, of course, that's the game Green Bay lights it up and makes Mr. USA over there look like he's a smart guy.
No, it's not. Rich, they score 40 points a game. They're the only team in history to score 40 points a game against their conference opponents. They're unstoppable. They're 40 points a game they score. Chicago got a lot of points in trash time, which is fine. I could have done that. But that being said, Green Bay was so much better. They could have blown them out. You saw the game. You just followed a losing team. That's all. Just say you lost. Okay, what's the next game?
I lost. I thought.
Okay, so far I'm undefeated. Keep going.
Ross, you're the man. You got it right. I'm telling you. I knew deep down inside I would have picked Green Bay, but I was like, you know what? Aaron Rodgers, like I said, a couple weeks in a row, they weren't covering. But it's one of those games where my dad has a theory. You always get mad at yourself when you lose betting against someone good. Like, if you bet against a crappy team and lose, you're not going to feel bad. But if you bet against Aaron Rodgers and lose, shame on you. So, shame on me.
Okay, what's the next game?
Listen, I'm a therapist, and I appreciate that kind of self-reflection. Nice job, Rich. Okay, so now we've got Tennessee at Indianapolis. This was, I thought, a tough game to call. Mm-hmm. Ross was totally certain, and he was not certain when I told him that Tennessee was sure to cover the spread against Baltimore, though he did call Tennessee to beat Baltimore. Ross is hard to beat, and he was sure on Tennessee. I have a friend from Indianapolis. I said, they have a pretty good defense, and he said they have the best defense in the league. AJ, wherever you are, if you're watching this, they do not have the best defense in the league. So, Rich, how did you feel about that one afterwards?
You know what? Tennessee, Derrick Henry, that team, when they want to light it up, we forget that they were an AFC championship team last year. I mean, again, Ross the boss, maybe you're just seeing things and I'm overthinking it, but, you know, that's a team that's better than I think.
Well, they're well coached. They have a great running game, and they can score points when they need to. And their defense picked it up that game. I didn't expect that much of a blowout, in all seriousness, but the game was over by halftime. I mean, I was cashing my ticket in Vegas at halftime, and there's a whole other half to play. But the guy said, "Oh, sure, Ross, we'll cash it for you," because the game was over.
Was that your kid's monitor? Did I get that right?
No, I there's always some noisy toy going on around me. I'm like,
I know, right? Yeah. No, see, that's the thing. That's the thing we have to say here. Ross may have beaten Rich in this, but Rich has young kids. He's bleary-eyed. He's stumbling through life right now, and Ross is gloating about it.
I actually do have a staff that works on the games, makes the predictions for me, and gives me the results before the show starts.
Rich
so
is dealing
I do
with
have an advantage over Rich.
I'm on your side there. Okay, we'll get to the other games, but now let's talk about the players we picked. Ross kind of bullied me into getting off of my original pick, who didn't end up even playing, so thank you. At least I had a player who played. But Zach Moss was basically totally pedestrian, and now Ross says to cut him. So Ross is really on a roll so far. Lauren, how did you do this week?
Well, guys, who did I pick? Oh, I picked Nelson Aguilar, and I was like, this is perfect. Wide receiver, meet the Atlanta Falcons. What could go wrong? Well, Derek Carr went wrong, like in a big way. I think, he got pulled. He got pulled from the game. I think he ended the week as quarterback 32, which just is an amazing feat to do against the Atlanta Falcons. So, needless to say, Nelson Aguilar, I think he went 5 for 54. Which I kind of view that as a win, considering how bad they played, but it's not really a win. So yeah.
And Rich, you I believe went with Tom Brady.
I did, which I mean, it was pedestrian. It was they kept it close, but statistically, he didn't do anything to light it up. So I mean, it was. I feel much like Lauren. It was an average pick, like nothing great, nothing bad, but more bad than good, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're guiding people as we want to as a fantasy sports show. We're guiding them towards slightly
mediocrity,
average. Okay, yeah. So Ross, how about you? Who'd you pick?
I picked Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos. He had a quarterback that wasn't really a quarterback. He was a wide receiver, practice squad.
And that was not true when you picked Melvin Gordon. So,
I mean, they played 9 guys on the line, and no one, I think, I don't know how many yards they had total as a team, but it wasn't good. So I don't even know what.
13 passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, Rich Davis could have done better in all seriousness.
No.
You put Rich Davis out there, he would have had more than 13 yards. But Melvin Gordon, I think it was like 10. I don't even know. I mean, it was a disaster. But
we're going to turn the page on this week. I mean, but I will say,
Melvin Gordon was a
Ross,
joke.
you have an excuse because the Broncos had that COVID quarterback situation.
No, it
Rich,
was disgusting that the NFL didn't cancel that game. It made me sick.
Lauren, you did fine. And Zach
Did I win
Moss,
this week?
Okay, so let's make our
Raiders?
points for
the
this
winner.
week.
Wow.
Well, I don't know. Well, we're going to bring in Andrew Seifter, Fantasy Pros
Yes.
expert, and probably won't have won. That's how annoying Andrew can be with these things, but that's probably
Andrew's the
why we love
best.
him.
Bring him on.
Okay, let's talk about Rich. You're the guest, so you get to either defer or pass in terms of going first.
Ooh, on my pick for this week, the off the radar fantasy guy, I think Lauren, I'm gonna echo something you said moments ago, but in a good way. I think coming off a terrible game, Derek Carr versus the Jets might be the pick of the week because everyone's so low on Derek Carr right now. But I mean, it's the Jets. Like, it really is one of those, like, you're beating up on the weak team. And Henry Ruggs might be another good one to pick. Anyone on Las Vegas.
It's a get right. It's a get right game.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. Ross, how about you?
Pick. I'm going to go with, because Rich is here, and I know he's a big 49er fan, and I'm going to take a guy that went to Arizona State, my alumni, Lauren's alumni. Mm-hmm. I'm taking Brandon Ayuk. I feel that Brandon Ayuk's going to have a big game. It's on. The game's actually Monday night. I'm excited about it. They're playing in Arizona, which is crazy. The whole Niner team went to Arizona yesterday. They're going to live there, practice there, and play their games in Arizona who knows till when, Rich, right? I have no idea. But that being said, I'm taking Brandon Ayuk. I like Brandon Ayuk. 2 touchdowns, 120 yards.
I love that.
2 touchdowns.
I like that.
2 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah, Rich
Take
would
that,
love for
Andrew.
Sure. All right, Lauren.
All right. Well, I'm going to switch it up a little bit because I feel like I've always, looked into stats and looked at good matchups, and it really hasn't really gotten me any far. So I am going to switch up my strategy, do a little old school, and I'm going with the good old gut feeling. And my gut feeling this week is Alan Lazard. Guys, I love the Packers this week.
Why did I let you go?
Oh,
yes, he was
well,
mine.
Listen, I love the
He's ranked
I love
46th on Fantasy Pros, and he's going to have a great
I know,
game.
he's super low. But I love the Packers this week. You never want to go against them, and I like all of them this week against the Eagles. And Lazard's coming back. It's his 3rd game back coming off the IR. His playing time's been increased. And I just think that Rodgers likes this guy, and he's played in 5 games, and in 5 of those games, he scored 3 touchdowns, so it's not too shabby. But that's what my gut says. It's Alan Lazard this week.
Well, then I'm going to have to do a deep dive.
This is going to be a good one. I can't wait.
All right. The number 54 receiver on the Fantasy Pros expert list is Gabriel Davis. And I'm sorry, Rich, it is against the 49ers. Nothing against the 49ers. I just think the guy's playing on like 97% of snaps. I know there's, injured receivers who are coming back, but the guy is starting to emerge. So I'm going to call him. I'm not saying he's going to have the greatest game, but I think he's going to have 77 yards and a touchdown. Okay, we're going to bring in Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter to hear his expertise. Andrew, where are you, sir?
Hey, I'm right here. It's funny you guys talk about me so much when I'm not in the room. I know it's sort of like dinner party behavior you would be doing. It's like you go over to grab a drink, and what are they going to say about you next?
Yeah.
We just want to make sure you're listening. That's all, Andrew. We want to make sure you're awake.
Well, you'll be happy to know that I also kind of butchered my pick last week. So I think Lauren may actually hold on and win with that Nelson Aguilar line.
Wow.
I went with Chase Edmonds, and it was a Kenyon Drake week, which happens sometimes. Edmonds only had 43 yards. He did catch 4 passes, which salvaged some RB3 kind of value in PPR leagues, but it wasn't a great week for him.
And who's your pick this week?
Who's your pick?
All right, so I'm going to go back to the running back and this is actually a guy who had a really good game last week too, but he's getting that, backup running back bias, I think, in the rankings, and that's Latavius Murray with the Saints. Since Taysom Hill took over as the quarterback, they are the single most run-heavy team in the entire league. His snaps have gone way up. Alvin Kamara's pain has been Latavius Murray's gain. And and his two best scrimmage yard games of the season are the last two games of the season. So this week they're playing the Falcons, which we were talking about before. They're no laughingstock, that defense, anymore. They've gotten a lot better in the second half of the year, but at the same time, they've actually gotten better against the pass, so I think it makes sense to run against them now. And they haven't faced any huge rushing volume, so I feel like Latavius Murray, along with Taysom Hill, might be able to wear that defense down. I think Murray is going to have a good game.
Great pick. I like that pick. I'm picking up Murray right now.
We'll see. He was one that I had on my radar, but I decided to go with a wide receiver.
Okay, let's talk about this week's games.
Andrew. Let's talk about this week's games. And again, the way we did it last week, I thought really worked. Rich and Ross, it's going to be the two of you against each other on the spread. Lauren and I will talk more of the fantasy side, though you guys can always weigh in on that as well. First, we've got Cleveland, my team, at Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 5.5 points. Rich, you get to decide, defer or start.
Well, I brought my dog for good luck.
Look at that dog. Yeah.
Piper Waffles here has got the good luck. And I think this is a statement game for the Cleveland Browns, because the Cleveland Browns are like sneaky good this year. We're forgetting they're a game and a half better than the Ravens. They are 8-3. They're sitting pretty for a playoff spot. Tennessee, a solid team nonetheless. I think this is a statement game. I like them covering, maybe winning the game. I'm going Cleveland on this one.
Well, I like it. Okay, Ross. Give me the bad
that's a great pick. I think with Hunt and Chubb and Myles Garrett coming back for defense, who is, I think, the best defensive guy in the league. That's mine. That's me. He's unstoppable. I just feel Cleveland's defense is better than Tennessee's. I do give them, the quarterbacks are, I don't know, I guess Tannehill's a little better, not by much. But I like a field goal game. I like I do like the Browns. I don't know if they'll win the game, but it's going to be a field goal game. You take the Browns and get the 5 points.
I like it. Now, from a fantasy perspective, Lauren, I've been watching Nick Chubb, and if you watched him in black and white, he starts to look like Jim Brown. That guy.
You love your Nick Chubb.
He is one of the most graceful runners I've seen in a long time. It's the grace of it. It's the Gale Sayers, Jim Brown kind of thing. So
him and Hunt are the best combination in football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think Chubb is just a cut above. When they handed to Hunt on 4th and 1, I was like, no, give it to Chubb, because Chubb would have gotten it. Chubb would have gotten it for sure. All right. Who else do you play in this game, Lauren?
I think it's the battle of the premier running backs. We're talking about, Nick Chubb. Don't forget about Derrick Henry on the other side. I
never heard of him. Derrick Henry?
Too.
Yeah. Who?
This is going to be great to watch. These are two great running backs. Don't forget about Kareem Hunt, which Ross talked about. And then, I think on the Tennessee side, we always talk about Tannehill. He had a couple down weeks, but he's gotten his stuff back together in the past couple weeks. He's efficient, and part of the reason why he does so well is because of the great hands of A.J. Brown. I love A.J. Brown. So I like Tannehill, Brown, both the running backs, or I should say all three running backs, with Kareem Hunt. Those are my fantasy guys.
Whenever people say the great hands of somebody, I'm like, did they touch you directly? It sounds so personal.
Know. Did they? I don't know.
I don't know. Well,
I don't know.
Tune in next week to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got the LA Rams at Arizona. The Rams are favored by a mere 2.5 points. I'm going to let Ross go first on this one.
Arizona's a weird team. They'll have a great game, and then they have a bad game, and they have a great game. I feel Murray's going to have a good game against the Rams. He's unstoppable. I know the Rams have a good defense. They're not the best, but they are good. Donald's great too. But I just feel Murray's going to push them over the edge. I think Arizona's defense is getting better every week. I feel it. I'm taking Zona. I feel it. I hope you guys feel it, but that's my pick this week.
All right, Rich.
You're wrong. Rams, Russ. All about the Rams.
The Lambs. You mean the Lambs, right? Not the Rams. We call them the Lambs in Los Angeles.
The Rams. And I'll tell you why. Because that NFC West needs more confusion. The Rams win. Arizona loses. My 49ers win in Buffalo. And now we're talking about the Niners control their own destiny. So I'm more selfishly thinking of my own team, but I think the Rams win this
playoffs. Who's talking? What are you talking?
Playoffs.
And playoffs. You heard me.
So you're taking the Rams. Okay. We'll see what happens. Good. We disagree.
Yeah. All right. So Lauren, let's talk about from the fantasy perspective, and of course,
Yeah.
Ross and Rich, feel free to weigh in if you think that there's somebody really big to play here. I think Cam Akers he's been ready to break out. I know he had only the one long run, but is this the time that he arrives? Who do you play in that backfield?
See, I was gonna say avoid the backfield from a fantasy
Yeah, that's-
perspect, and
okay,
I was gonna
I'm
say
with
that
you. I'm with you.
Good
the
move.
only two guys you want to play, I think, out of of the Rams are Kupp and Woods, but I would avoid the backfield.
I totally
say,
agree. And how about Arizona? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Kurt Warner.
Oh yeah, what'd you
Kurt
think,
Warner.
Rich?
Yeah, play
Kurt Warner's making
Warner.
a comeback. I mean,
Kurt
I guess Drake, you got to play. I mean, he's been getting the ball and he's been running like a madman since he got back.
Yeah,
When he catches fire, he can do a lot.
Yeah, and I think, I don't see, if you have Kyler Murray, you're going to be playing him, but he's had a couple of down weeks. I think his shoulder's bothering him, and defenses have been stopping him on the ground, and I think that's had a negative effect, like, throughout the entire team. But the one person that hasn't really affected in a negative way is Kenyon Drake. I think, actually, he has the most upside this week. He's running, and part of the reason he's had so much upside is that they're passing to him now. In the past 2 games where the team's done poorly, he's seen 9 targets. He's scored 3 times, and he's the guy that they're giving the ball to, on the end zone. And so I do like Kenyon Drake this week. I think if you have Kyler Murray, I think that you're going to play him, but I would maybe temper my expectations a little bit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think
I'm
who's this
with
guy Hopkins, or he's a
Yeah,
receiver?
of course, it's also Hopkins, but he's had 4 weeks where 3 out of the 4 weeks he hasn't caught for over like
That's
55
why-
yards.
Yeah, that's why you deal him for David Johnson, who gets injured, and then you get fired.
And the second,
No,
and a
that
fourth
was
round
not a
pick,
good move.
and a fourth round pick.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
the
God,
fourth
it was
round
worse.
pick.
Okay,
who's next?
New England at the Chargers. It's a pick'em game, so this is really just
It's in L.A. I wish I could go.
It's in L.A.
I'll take Rich
in
Davis,
LA,
but he
and-
can't go.
And
I'll go first.
tell you from a fantasy perspective, we're gonna skip that one basically because you play Herbert, you play Eckler, you play Keenan Allen. I don't see playing anybody on New England.
I'll go first.
agree.
I'll go with the
Yeah, you go
Chargers. I feel the Chargers have a better offense. I feel that Cam Newton's been all over the place. I don't think his head's in the game right now. He's not playing that great. His stats are not that great. I feel the Chargers, their offense is clicking. I mean, Keenan Allen and Williams and their whole team's is clicking with Hunter Henry. They're going to be unstoppable. There's no way the Patriots are going to be able to keep up with that offense. So I'm taking the Chargers. Let's see what Davis says.
I hate that I agree with you on this one, but
It's okay.
the Chargers are a team. Now, every year, and sadly for them, even when they were in San Diego, there's 1 or 2 teams a year that lose a lot of close games, right? And their record reflects way worse than what they really are. And this Chargers team, I feel like that's them this year. They're not
That's them.
they're not a multiple game under 500 team in my eyes. Herbert's a young stud. He's going to be a star of the future. They got weapons. I think a couple balls bounce a different way, 1 turnover, a couple penalties. This is a 500 team fighting for a playoff spot. I think they're a way better team than the Pats. So I'm with you, Ross.
And
All right.
I also say bet the over in that game too.
All right. You heard it from Ross the Boss first, unless you heard it earlier. Okay, so we got our last game, and I don't think we're gonna have time for the fantasy stuff. Not
That's
in this
fine.
game.
Hurry.
You're gonna have to look us up on Twitter to ask questions about this. So, Buffalo at Rich Davis's San Francisco 49ers. The Bills are favored by 2.5 on the road. Rich, would you like to go first?
No,
or
no, wait.
second?
You didn't say the most important thing. They're playing in Arizona.
Yeah.
So
good
they're,
point.
they're
Good
playing
point. They're not
in
even
Arizona,
playing a
so
home game.
both teams are not.
They don't even
are
get
not
their
at home.
10,000 fans.
But they will have fans there because they do have fans at that stadium. But Rich, you go first. I went first last time. I just want to make sure everybody knows it's not a home game for either team.
The 49ers.
Good call.
The 49ers are going to make a statement. Raheem Mostert, Brandon Ayuk, your boy, who you shouted out before, Arizona State. They got Deebo Samuel back. This team is young. They're quick. If you think Nick Mullins is that much worse than Jimmy Garoppolo, I'll be honest, I'm not impressed with any 49ers quarterback. This team realizes that if they stay close the last week or so of the season, they might get Jimmy G and Kittle back, right? And a couple other defensive players. If they win, they're 6-6. And I wrote a couple notes here for you guys. The rest of their schedule goes like this.
Go.
Washington, win. Cowboys, win. Cardinals, if the Cardinals lose this week, the 49ers, that's their game. And they finish versus the Seahawks. So they'd have to really earn it. But the 49ers could control their own destiny, which is more than you could possibly ask for a team that was riddled with so many injuries. So as a 49ers fan, I'm stupidly hopeful that they go on a little run here. With that 7th playoff spot, a 9-7 team, definitely a 10-6 team will make the playoffs.
All right, Ross, what do you say?
Aaron Rodgers, when he played the Niners like a few weeks ago, he said he felt sorry for them. They had the most injuries of any team he's ever seen. I mean, he said this in the press conference.
Yeah.
He was like kind of embarrassed that he beat him by that many points. It's kind of like when you pour the points on when you play like a junior high school, a junior varsity team or something. So that being said, the Niners are getting healthy. Bosa looks. I mean, they're getting healthy quick, and I know they don't have Kittle, but their running back is back. I agree with Rich. Buffalo came to Arizona 2 weeks ago and got their ass beat in Arizona. That was 2 weeks ago. They're coming back to Arizona to play again. So they're going to lose again. So I feel the Buffalo's running game is awful. Not good, not average, awful for the running game of Buffalo. Moss and Singletary are embarrassments to be even out there. They average like under 3 yards a carry. It's bad. But I feel the same thing Rich said, that the 49ers will come to play and they're going to win that game.
So between Ross and Rich, it's all about the Rams at Arizona.
That's it. I'm sorry. I wanted to disagree with them.
I wish it was more, but
I wish it was more, but I can't. I just can't disagree with them this week.
When you break down that NFC, guys, and Lauren, I'm sure you agree, the East is a wash. Whoever wins the division, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You got Green Bay, New Orleans, and probably Tampa, right? Because they have an easy schedule.
Okay, good.
And then the other 2 wild cards come from the West. So let's say Seattle wins or the Rams win. The other 2 wild cards, 3 of those 4 teams will make it.
Right.
Will the 49ers step it up? Will the Cardinals choke down the stretch? It really comes down to, and they're all playing each other the final weeks of the season, which is fantastic. So the NFC West is so good right now.
No, we're rooting for you. We want the Niners
Rich,
in it. We want the Rams in it too.
We are rooting for you, including against Ross. Sorry, Ross. Okay, listen. Up next, it's time for Monster Madness. The Elite Eight is going to get rounded out. But first, it's Ross's rant. Okay, Ross, we're in a big hurry today, so you have 38 seconds. Go!
So my rant today is about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did everybody watch the game Wednesday afternoon to watch the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers versus the horrible Baltimore Ravens, who had nobody on their team? Their whole team was either hurt or had COVID. The Steelers won by 5 points. 5 points. And my feeling is this. They're the worst 11-0 team in history. NFL history, the worst one. But the reason they're winning is because of their coach, Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin is a great coach, and he's a winner. The team's playing great with no fans out there. It comes down to coaching and talent, and Pittsburgh won't cover any spreads, but they'll win every game until the last one. We'll see what happens. I'm Ross the Boss.
Okay, it's time for Monster Madness. We are joined by Steve Byrne. Of course, Ross the Boss is always here, and Lauren Auerbach. So, guys, we have 2 matchups. This is the East bracket. So, Steve, the way this works is it's just like March Madness. It's a little less money involved and sponsorships and things like that, but we're working on that.
Okay.
We've got 2 matchups today, and both form a member of the Elite Eight. We're rounding out the Elite Eight. Just so you know, Magneto, Zeus, Phoenix, Luke Skywalker, Dr. Manhattan, and Yoda have all made the Elite Eight.
Wow, okay.
And the Emperor just beat Wolverine, which I have some regrets about, I've got to say. I should have voted for Wolverine. I don't know what was wrong with me. I mean, that guy would just keep... I mean, he could come back right now. He comes back all the time. So we're going to start with the Emperor. He's the number 1 seed versus Iron Man, who is a 13 seed, beat Gandalf and the T-1000 from the Terminator 2. I knew you were going to like this game. All right, so we got the Emperor versus Iron Man. Now, when we have a guest on, I always give them the chance to either defer or go first. So you make your argument of who is going to win, or you can defer.
I will. So if I defer, that means I get to go in a minute or 2, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. You could.
Okay, I'm going to defer for now. For now, I'm going to defer because I like to hear.
All right. All right, and you can jump in whenever you want. Lauren, let's start with you. The Emperor versus Iron Man.
Yeah. Okay. So I think.
Oh, she does not sound enthused about
Well,
this.
because to me the question is, it's just like this. Is the Force beat whatever Iron Man can bring right to the table? If he's like, doing all of this stuff that he does, he's got the unibeam, he does all that stuff. And this isn't a very good argument, but I'm going to go with Iron Man, mostly because I also am tired of all the Star Wars guys that we have going through. So that's not
This
fair.
is why I should have
It's not
Wolverine
fair,
should have
but
taken
there
it.
are lesser arguments that have been made that have put other characters through. So that's my
So
argument.
you just are hating on Star Wars.
Yeah.
No, let's say it fairly. You're tired of Star Wars. It's a little.
I'm just tired. I've had a lot of Star Wars.
Ross, how about you? Are you tired of Star Wars also? I'm
I'm not going to say I'm tired of Star Wars. I always liked the franchise. I like the older ones with Lucas a lot better than the new ones, but that's Ross the Boss talking. I'm going with God, it's such a tough thing. I'm going with Iron Man. I like the upset, baby. He's the 13th seed. He's going to beat the number 1 seed. The reason I like that is this guy's he's just not like a superhero. He's like a scientist. He does all this work beforehand. He'll figure it out. He's a whole team behind him. He's really rich. He has money. I feel that this guy that has like lightning coming out of him and he's so evil and mean. I just don't see evil happening this time. I think the evil will go down. We need something uppity. We need something strong in 2020. I'm going for Iron Man. The Emperor is just such bad karma. That's Ross the Boss.
Yeah, we need more Iron Man right now.
Steve,
What do you
I'm
got?
gonna
2
turn
for
it
Iron
to
Man.
you.
We're going for
I'm
the
gonna-
upset, baby. This is unbelievable,
turn it to you.
baby.
Because I don't want to like, if I voted for Iron Man, then you have what I call the New York vote, where it just doesn't matter at all, and that would be completely lame. So
Yeah.
we're gonna turn it over. I'm not telling you who I'm voting for yet, but go ahead. You're a Star Wars guy, so you know the Emperor
I think you're all a bunch of bitches. The Emperor. First off, Tony Stark's dead, you dumb motherfucker.
Oh, you ruined the movie for me. What are you doing?
Second off, the Emperor is the baddest dude in the galaxy. He's died. He's come back. He does it all in a bathrobe, and he's got shitty skin. He is lightning from his fingertips, and he doesn't have to rely on Jarvis. Jarvis, can you bail me out? Jarvis, can you? No. And he's not dealing with Gwyneth Paltrow either. He does it by himself. Emperor.
I love it, Steve. Listen, there were times where I started to think, well, Robert Downey Jr. is just that charming that he could like maybe turn the Emperor back to good. But then I remembered who the Emperor really is, and he is such a badass. You hate the Emperor so much, and that's a sign of how powerful he is. So,
Right.
I mean, listen, the Emperor, he is like flesh-eating bacteria, just like in human form. I mean. And lightning, and it's really his sarcasm that does it, though. It's just withering. Iron Man's suit will melt just from his sarcasm. So we have a tie. So we're going to bring in Casey Scheinvold for our tiebreaker.
This guy's one of the
Casey,
best. He's the
believe
best
him.
in the
Come on,
business,
Casey.
Casey. Casey, you got my
think this-
got my envelope
So-
of money, right? You got the envelope full of money I
This
sent
is
you.
a lot of pressure being the tiebreaker, but
Yeah, you've never done it before.
you know, I hate to upset the guest, but I'm going with Iron Man in this battle. I think if you remember in the first Avengers, Thor used his hammer and tried to like bolt Iron Man to death, and all it did was soup up his suit to like 500% more power. So I think the Emperor's going to try his lightning bolts. Iron Man's just going to take it, use that power, and send him right back. And truth be told, I don't think the Emperor ever really killed anybody by himself in any of these movies, did he? I mean,
He
he killed
tried.
Mace Windu,
He was-
but that was
He
only
didn't even
because
need
Anakin
to.
stopped Mace Windu from killing
No,
him.
the Emperor is so badass that he didn't even need to kill people. He's just
Yeah,
like,
but
you
I'm just telling
do
you,
this.
this matchup, I
You
don't-
do that.
Well,
He
I
made
hate
Darth
to
Vader
disappoint
do
you, Dan,
things.
but I'm dropping the mic on that one. I'll see you guys later.
Listen,
Thanks, Casey.
all right, Casey.
Thanks,
Thank you
Casey.
for weighing in. All right, now I'll say this. I'm disappointed on two different levels. First of all, the idea of Iron Man being the one to take out the Emperor is pathetic. And
I agree.
on top of it, I had a chance. If the Emperor was going to go out, I should have given it to Wolverine. So Wolverine should be here, not Iron Man. But
Sorry, that's not
fine.
how it works. In the NCAAs, there's many upsets. This is an upset, baby. A one
I agree.
seed's
I
gone.
agree.
We got
He's
rid
a
of a 1 seed. We
13
did it.
seed. 13 seed all the way. Actually, is there any number 1 seed left? No. All the 1 seeds are gone. This has been crazy. Okay, we're going to move on to our next matchup. This is a bit of an enigma for Steve, because even though he is only 3 months older than me, which we've established puts him in a whole different risk bracket for COVID.
That's right.
He doesn't remember the bad guy in the Neverending Story was the Nothing that just slowly ate everything, and just like everyone, and you see those really sad creatures. They're so sad because it's eating everything. So it's a very dangerous foe. It basically is like antimatter, but facing off against Doctor Strange, who I have always argued is a very underrated guy. Now, Doctor Strange got here by beating the Kraken and then Samson. And, one of our few biblical entries. And here we are with the Nothing. Now, Steve, you again can defer, or you can go first.
I will go first on this one. I love Doctor Strange. I think he is a cooler version almost of Iron Man with sorcery and magic and mystique. But I sympathize with the Nothing because it's all encompassing. And the Nothing is now how I identify myself in the state of California. So I will go with Nothing on this one.
Yep. Sometimes you got to go with Nothing. Now, Ross, I'm gonna go with you, because often when we come to you late, and I feel like that's not fair. So, you know something about Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you beat I really don't know how you beat the Nothing. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm sitting here analyzing like every scenario. There's nothing. I don't see Doctor Strange taking the Nothing. I wish I can say Doctor Strange. I really want to, but I can't. I just don't feel that he has any advantage at all on the Nothing. The Nothing has advantage written all over it. The Nothing wins. It's a knockout, second round. I like it. You like it. Let's call it off right now. Lauren?
So we've got 2 Nothings, but I do want to bring up, Lauren, before I turn it over to you, Doctor Strange does that thing where he makes those circles and then suddenly people walk through and they're in the Himalayas.
Portals.
So, the Nothing, I could just see him transporting the Nothing into space. And then the Nothing's just like, just eating like an expanding universe and being... So I said I was going to turn it over to you with just this one argument, but I guess I'm just voting. I think Doctor Strange takes out the Nothing. Doctor Strange, he could, do that thing where he moves around really fast. He's going through all the different scenarios that he did with Thanos, and you knew that he knew the one way to beat him, and so he did what would beat him. That's the thing about Doctor Strange. He will know what the scenario is.
There were 14 million different things that could have happened.
Yeah, exactly. And he'll know, and he'll realize that the thing to do is make the Nothing go into outer space, but away from the sun, because you don't want the Nothing to eat the sun. But Doctor Strange wins this by releasing the Nothing on the expanding universe. That's my argument.
Okay, so 2-1, Lauren.
I will piggyback on top of that. I'm going to go with Doctor Strange as well, mostly because we talked about how the Nothing is all encompassing. But remember, Doctor Strange beat the Dark World, which also was kind of this all encompassing thing that went through the cities.
And he's got a doctoral degree. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, and he knows sorcery, but he did it by doing that endless time loop thing where. If I'm remembering this correctly, like every time the Dark World tried to kill him, he had paused it and it went into this loop. So basically Doctor Strange could never get killed, and it then frustrated the Dark World, and he made a bet with the Dark World, and he figured out, like what Dan was saying, he finds a way to win and finds the best way to do it. And that's what he did there. And I think that that's what he would do to the Nothing.
The Nothing is an extremely...
okay?
Yeah.
Seinfeld never did a sitcom about Iron Man. He did a sitcom about nothing. So
yeah, it's a show about nothing.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah.
It's it's a show about Doctor Strange.
What's the deal with Doctor?
What?
Yeah.
He's not a doctor.
Is
he strange? Yeah.
So we have a tie.
Strange. Casey, you got to come in again.
This guy better.
I'm back. This is exciting. I get to play
Casey.
A lot of work.
pivotal role going into the Elite Eight. I'm like that special super sub off the bench. You know, unfortunately, I feel like I'm fangirling for Marvel a little bit here because I'm going to go with Doctor Strange on this one. I do agree
I'm 0 for 2 with Casey.
You know, and what
You
Lauren was
idiot.
referring to was Dormammu was the name of the
Dormammu.
evil one, and he allowed him to kill him over and over and over again until he just got so frustrated that he was willing to quit instead of keep reliving the time loop. He could do that, or he could just create a portal and have the nothing float through it and float to a different part of the world, and he can just run the clock out. So I think Doctor Strange takes this one. We're going to have an all Marvel Elite 8 in the East bracket.
Marvelous.
All right, Casey. Thank you for weighing in. So, Steve, I think we need to have you back because you didn't
I'm 0
get
for
to
2.
experience a win even. I mean,
Didn't experience a win. No,
that's not cool. But listen,
No,
you
it's
made
not.
great
But
arguments.
Here's the win. I made a bunch of new friends, and I got to see Ross the Boss.
That
It's
That's
an
win-win.
honor to be.
That is the
he's
win.
right. It is an honor to be
Those
on
are your
the
two
show.
wins.
That's
You
which
win.
kind of makes it sounds like he's
I
friends
can't wait
with
for
us,
hockey
but not
season.
you, Ross. We definitely have to have you on for hockey season. Steve, thank you for joining
Always.
us. We've got Iron Man advancing. I guess they are the George Mason of this Monster Madness bracket, and Doctor Strange advancing over the nothing. Thank you for joining us, Steve. This was amazing having you.
Thanks, guys.
Hey everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and we had a great show today. We had Rich Davis on. He was pretty upset because Ross the Boss just didn't destroy him. He annihilated him. I didn't lose a game in our picks. He was pretty upset, but we'll see what happens next week when we go after each other. And we also have on this episode, we have Steve Byrne, very funny comedian, but he directed and he wrote this movie called The Opening Act, which is great. I can't wait to see it.
We had great guests this time, and we're going to go over all the same things we always do, but even better. The show gets better and better. We got First and 10 and all the strategy. We got Take Your Pick with all the picks, and Ross versus Rich. He's returning next week. We've got celebrity guests. Next week is Bob Saget, and Monster Madness will have our first entry into the Final Four. Stay hungry, my friends. This has been MFSN's The Hub.
As I always say every week, you must subscribe, ring the bell, subscribe, share the show with friends, tell about it. We got some great stuff going on. Just like Dan said, it's going to be great. I'm excited. We have some basketball stuff coming up soon also. Just be ready for all this great things. But I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking sports with you, cowboy.
Lying with a blanket over my head, she asked if she could see who was under the blanket with me. I said, you don't want to find. It is Hideki Matsui.